You have ideas, good ones, the kind that arrive at 2 a.m. fully formed, almost urgent, and then nothing. Not because you forgot them, not because you don't care, but because something quieter than fear and heavier than doubt told you to wait just a little longer. The question isn't why you're not doing it. The question is what you're protecting yourself from by not starting. You've called yourself lazy, maybe for years. The word fits easily. It explains the unfinished drafts, the unopened files, the project that lives permanently in your head but never on the page. But notice what happens when no one is watching. When there's no chance of feedback, no risk of judgment, you move. You research for hours. You sketch things out. You feel something close to alive. The moment someone could see it, though, the energy drains. The task suddenly feels impossible, exhausting, not worth it. This is not laziness. Laziness is indifference. What you're describing is its opposite. You care so much that exposure feels unbearable. Psychologists call this self-handicapping, a behavioral pattern where people unconsciously create conditions for failure before anyone else can cause it. If you don't try fully, you can't fully fail. If you don't show it, no one can tell you it's not enough. And if no one knows what you're capable of, they can never be disappointed. It's not avoidance of effort, it's avoidance of evaluation. And here's where it gets quietly complicated. The part of you doing this isn't irrational. It learned this behavior, for a reason, in a specific context. The question is whether that context still exists.
You are not broken. You are not someone who lacks discipline or drive. You are someone whose nervous system learned at some point that being seen was dangerous. Maybe it was a classroom where effort was mocked. Maybe it was a parent whose praise was conditional. Maybe it was a time you tried something and the response told you, not good enough. The brain is not sentimental. It simply records outcomes. It noted visibility led to pain, and it built a system to prevent that from happening again. That system is not your enemy. It was, once, your protection. The work isn't about dismantling it. It's about updating it. Here's what's happening in the brain. When you imagine sharing your work, a post, a project, a conversation where you say what you actually think, your amygdala fires. The amygdala is your brain's threat detection system. It doesn't distinguish between a tiger in the forest and a comment section. Both register as potential danger, prepared to withdraw. This triggers what neuroscientists call a threat response cascade. Cortisol rises. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for clear thinking and action, goes partially offline, and your motivation circuitry begins to stall. Think of it this way. Imagine your brain as a city. The prefrontal cortex is City Hall, planning, deciding, creating. The amygdala is the emergency broadcast system. When it activates, City Hall goes into lockdown. Not because it's weak, because the system is doing its job. The problem is the alarm is miscalibrated. It was set during a time when visibility was genuinely risky. Now it fires at the first sign of anyone paying attention to you. There's a second layer here, drawn from identity-based psychology. Researcher Carol Dweck's work on mindset shows us that people who tie their self-worth to performance rather than to effort experience external evaluation as an existential threat. If your work gets rejected, it doesn't just mean the work failed. It means you failed, that you are not enough. The brain will do almost anything to avoid that conclusion, including keeping you invisible.
So, what do you actually do with this? Not a morning routine, not a productivity hack. Something that works with your brain, not against it. Step 1. Separate the self from the output. The brain conflates your identity with your work because that's what it learned. Actively practice naming the difference. Say out loud or in writing, "This is a thing I made. It is not a measure of my worth." Why it works? This activates the prefrontal cortex's labeling function, what neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman calls affect labeling, which measurably reduces amygdala activation. Real-life example? Before sending an email you've been sitting on for 3 days, write one sentence first. "This email is a communication, not a verdict on me." Then send it. Step 2. Reduce the audience before reducing the work. Don't publish to no one to avoid visibility. Publish to one person first. A trusted friend, a private account, a journal shared with nobody. Why it works? The brain recalibrates threat levels through repeated safe exposure. Each low-stakes act of being seen teaches the amygdala that visibility does not equal harm. Real-life example? Share one rough idea with one person you trust, not for feedback, just to practice the act of externalizing something internal. Step 3. Name the fear specifically. Not "I'm scared," too vague for the brain to process. Ask instead, "What is the specific outcome I'm afraid of?" They'll think I'm ordinary. It won't be as good as I imagined it. People will know I don't have it figured out. Why it works? Specificity moves fear from the emotional brain into the language centers, which are more manageable. Vague fear is processed as existential threat. Named fear can be examined. Real-life example? Before abandoning a creative project, write down the exact sentence you're afraid someone will say. Read it. Notice it doesn't disappear, but it shrinks. Step 4. Redefine what done means. Perfectionism is not high standards. It is the belief that if the work is not flawless, it will not be safe to show. Replace "done" means perfect with "done" means complete enough to learn from. Why it works? This shifts the goal from approval seeking to information gathering, a different neural pathway entirely, one that's tied to curiosity rather than threat. Real-life example? Post the thing, not because it's ready, because the only way to learn what it needs is to let it exist outside your head. Here's the model to hold on to. You are not withholding because you're lazy. You are withholding because your brain made a reasonable calculation and saved you the file under the wrong name. It filed being seen as being harmed. The work now is a quiet, consistent act of filing correction. Every small moment of visibility, a thought shared, a piece published, a conversation where you say what you actually mean, is a data point that tells the brain, "This was safe. We can update the record." You don't override the system by force. You teach it something new. You were never the problem. The version of you that learned to hide learned it somewhere real, from something real. That version kept you intact, but you are not in that place anymore. And the ideas that arrive at 2 a.m., the ones you keep almost starting, they are not proof of your inadequacy. They are proof that something in you still believes it's worth trying. The question is no longer whether you're capable, it's whether you're willing to be seen while finding out.